Welcome to the Forte Growth Podcast. If you're listening to this for the first time, this was the Niche Website Builders Podcast. It is now Forte Growth. For the Forte Growth SEO agency, you can check them out for all the services they provide, Harrow link building, digital PR, all that kind of stuff. Good shit. They've done a great job for me. But today we have Harvey Meale, and Harvey is, I guess, now starting to kick up a storm on Twitter, but he's had some great success with his sites, and we dive into a couple of the sites. One of them he's already sold, but one of them that he's currently selling, he got to 10K a month within a year, just purely from affiliate articles. So we dive into his strategy there, how he worked his CRO, what he does there to make really good roundup affiliate articles, and how he finds the products that do really well. So he was making, $1,000 to $2,000 just off one article. So we dive into a little bit of that. We also dive into the idea of using gifs versus images. And we also dive into the idea of making your featured images on your blog more like YouTube thumbnails. So it's a really interesting episode, diving into some of these, you could say, less discussed topics within blogging and niche website building. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Forte Growth Podcast. This should be episode number 1 if you're listening to this, following a lot of the same, I guess you could say, format as the previous podcast. If you were a Niche Website Builders listener, you will recognize my voice. It is pretty much the same podcast, new name, new agency, and everything behind it. But today we have Harvey Meale. Welcome, Harvey.
Cheers, James. It's great to be here talking about some niche websites. Pretty excited. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you actually start building niche websites? Because it's not SEO and things isn't your primary background, correct?
Yeah, well, I actually started doing websites probably back when I was 9 or 10. Like I've just been building WordPress sites since I was in the womb, basically. The thing was, like, back then, like, I understood how to write articles and how to publish them and, like, mess around with all the WordPress stuff, but I never really understood that, the whole traffic component, the whole SEO side of things. And so I was kind of just writing articles into the void, more or less like a personal blog. Like, I thought
how we all
blogging
started.
used to be like, no one's actually going to read this, right? But then it wasn't really until COVID, really, when I sort of had some extra time on my hands and found myself, as everyone seems to have done, stumbling into an income school video at some point. And basically, I kind of just learned that I could actually get some traffic now, and a little bit of keyword research goes a long way. And so, I already had a lot of the skills in terms of building websites. I'd been building websites for clients and stuff since I was 17. But really, when I figured out that you could get traffic through SEO, that was when kind of it all changed, and I started taking it a bit more seriously. Seriously, I guess, a bit of an understatement. Kind of went all in, pretty obsessive if I'm going to do something like that. And so I guess it was COVID, probably just about 2 years ago now.
Yeah, I think we had a very similar entry into this new site game then. I also stumbled across Income School. I think Income School gets a lot of hate for what they do, but the amount of people that probably brought into the space is huge. And even them showing you how to do some keyword research and how to format an article properly is like game changing for most people coming in.
Yeah. Like whatever they did, like I in COVID literally was binging through their videos. Like I'm talking like 16 hours a day for like more than a week. Like I would just go on walks for I'd be walking for like 4 hours in the morning and then again in the evening, just like listening to those guys on repeat. And I got a ton out of it. Like I think a lot of it I kind of wasn't too hard to pick up, but the way they delivered the information, maybe not the most technical in certain spots, but it was a really, really sort of perfect introduction, to be honest.
So how many sites do you currently have in your portfolio? I know a couple of your sites, but based on your Twitter, it sounds like you've got a bunch more.
I've got one main site, which has actually been listed for sale now. I'm trying to get rid of it because I'm trying to buy more Bitcoin, if I'm being completely honest. But I got the one main site. I've just sold another site, and I've got this new little thing I'm playing around with as well. So I guess 2 sites now that I'm working very slowly on, and trying to sell the main site. But no, it's just been I really struggled to do the whole portfolio thing. I'm a firm believer that if you've got any amount of sites, like one site. There's just always something you can do to like make that site better. There's like, whether it's outreach or just like any like publishing content aside, there's just too much to be done. So when people tell me they've got like 7 or 8 sites in their portfolio, I'm like, how do you possibly manage that? Like, I get that you can outsource writing and like, outreach and link building and stuff, but like you still have to oversee everything, and it just, the whole idea of it gives me a massive conniption. And so like, yeah, I'm kind of more of a one and a half site operator, I guess. Kind of seems to be my flow at the moment.
Nice. Do you want to drop some stats on that site you're selling? How old is it? What's it making? Is that the one that earned 10K a month within the first 12 months, or is that a different site?
Yeah. Yeah, so when I first monetized that one shot up pretty. They both did actually. The one I sold, but didn't quite get that size. So yeah, that's A1 Athlete. That's what I'm trying to sell. I guess maybe 2 years old now, depending on when you sort of start the clock. But yeah, in terms of stats, so it's kind of, we did change brand recently, so we've kind of switched the domain to a new one, and that happened I think around March, and traffic kind of right around that time. There was a reviews update as well, which it was either because we've changed domain to a fresh domain or we got caught up in the reviews domain, but we got absolutely smacked in that reviews update. Funny story about that, actually. We have a lot of affiliate content on the site. That's what I do, is the affiliate stuff, and it works very well. But, we had a bunch of like roundup articles that were doing really good. And I was thinking one day, like, how can we make these even better? So like Google loves us even more. And I was like, okay, let's go out and buy all the products, let's get in-hand testing done, and like, do a bunch of individual product reviews. And what ended up happening is me and my writer, we just did tons and tons of reviews, and we didn't publish any more info content. And so we already had like 50 or 60% affiliate content, and we just went and published like 40 or 50 more individual product reviews. And I think what happened is like we ended up with a massive skew towards affiliate content on the site. Like it was obviously good content. Like we went out and bought the products, right? We literally did this to appease Google and to make them happy, because they say you gotta do this if you want to do a good job. And that was like, like clockwork. We just got spanked in that reviews update. And I'm guessing it's probably something to do with having 70-80% affiliate versus info ratio. So yeah, right now we're down in the dust, down to like, mate, it's still nothing. It's like 15K page views a month. But revenue is still quite high. We're doing like about $8,000 a month on that one, just from 15K page views. It's a little disappointing that we lost quite a bit of traffic. I think it was down from 60, 70K or something like that. So it's always been like relatively low in terms of traffic, but heavily monetized. Like the overall site RPM is pretty nuts. Like I think at the moment with that 15K page views, it's like a $500 site-wide RPM if you like include like income per 1,000 page views. So it's
Wow.
Yeah, it's not ideal. We're being kind of like artificially suppressed in the SERPs, is what it feels like. We've kind of just disappeared from like all the keywords we would rank for in the past. And luckily we still have a bunch of like our major affiliate terms are still ranking very well. Like if we do show up on Google, it's like we're going to be one. We're going to have a very high CTR. But it's just like we're just gone from like so many SERPs, and it's not so nice. Like nothing's really happening in GSC. It's very sort of, it's not exactly a site that's inspiring to publish on at the moment, because whenever we do publish new content, like it'll index immediately and get 0 page views. Just the tap just doesn't get turned on new content. So it's like, I mean, I guess like all we can do at this stage is kind of just wait it out, and maybe could keep publishing and stuff. But I've found out recently that if you're looking to sell a site, it doesn't make a ton of sense to do a whole lot of publishing, because the way Empire do it now is they take the content out of your bottom line, basically. So if I go out and buy, just in the last couple of months, I spent like 10 grand on content for the site, and I'm going to get no return on it because we're getting 0 page views from the new content. And that's just like comes straight out of the multiple we're able to fetch for the site, but is what it is. I think it's still important to take care of the site and everything, and hopefully some forthcoming buyer will want to take it over and keep it going and try and get it through this update, I guess.
Yeah. Why did you take the risk to rebrand and put it on a fresh domain? And then how did you actually do it? How did you redirect the old domain to that new one?
Yeah. So I kind of do regret it in hindsight. Yeah. So the site started out as jumpstronger.com, and like the niche was vertical jump training for athletes, right? So people don't even know it's a niche, like the fact that people like basketballers, volleyballers, everyone wants to be able to jump higher. If you can jump higher, you're a
It's a
more
big
valuable
clickbait product,
athlete.
right?
It was, yes, back in the day. Actually, that's like when I was 10 years old, I actually started a site around jump training. Yeah, I wrote like a 30-page ebook teaching people how to jump higher. I didn't bloody know anything at the time, but that was, it was like huge back then, all the vert shocks, and they're still around today. I'm still selling vert shock today. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, so we started as Jump Stronger, and like at some point we just kind of were like I've basically written all the articles there are, on jump training, or a lot of them. It was just like, we started doing a whole lot more, almost like garage gym reviews style content, just like reviewing a
Yeah.
lot of kit, more or less. And so it kind of seemed like we were just kind of like getting a little bit away from that domain name in terms of the content we were publishing. It was less sort of about jumping exclusively now, and more sort of about general sports performance, which is okay with. So I just thought like, it'd make a bit more sense in terms of like, if we're going to expand into general sports performance and, more equipment reviews and stuff, to sort of have that new domain in place that could allow us to sort of expand a bit more. But what happened was, I just 301 the whole site. I feel like I'm pretty certain I went through the proper migration process and everything. And once everything was done, we regained about 70% of the traffic. And like a day later, I think that was right around when the review update hit. So it was hard to see, like the traffic doesn't necessarily come back overnight. When you do a migration like that, sometimes it can be pretty quick, sometimes it can be weeks or months even. So I wasn't if that reviews update didn't happen, possibly we would have got right back to where everything was, and it would have been sweet. I kind of don't have the feeling that would have been the case. I don't know. I feel like Google hates the new domain. It's like a
I wonder if it's
25-year-old
a
domain as well.
mismatch. Yeah, I wonder if it's a mismatch of like branded anchors go into the new domain, because it's homepage to homepage. So I'm assuming you have a bunch of branded anchors to Jump Stronger, and then that's pointing to a new domain.
Honestly, mate, the
Then
amount
that kind
of
of
link
changes
building
that.
that I did on Jump Stronger was close to nothing. I don't even know like if there was, aside from all the spam links and everything, I don't think there was too much of that. But I can't really figure it out, mate, to be honest. But so that's basically what happened with that one. But I mean, time will tell. It's just a waiting game now. Like I have full confidence. Like the site's still great in my opinion, obviously. But like there's no reason for it to be sort of in the doghouse with where it is with the content. If anything, if the only thing I can sort of see that we could do a better job of at this stage is just to publish more info content and get that ratio down a bit more. But man, it's really tough doing that when it's just crickets on all the content you're doing. Possibly we could delete, get rid of one or two of the new silos that we started out working on, because when we started it was a very sort of tight topic. It's all about jump training, and now we started writing about physiotherapy stuff. My staff writer's a physio, and it's a lot of recovery, muscle scraping, Nordic benches, tip bars, and everything in between. And it's like, should we really be writing about like Achilles tendonitis, or should we just kind of like leave it? I don't know, like I'm not really wanting to go and delete a bunch of content at the moment, but I'm happy to just wait on it, to be honest. Yeah.
So how did you get such explosive growth on the original site? Like 10K a month within a year is no joke. So
Yeah,
how did you
yeah.
approach
So
building? I was on a fresh domain, right?
it was a fresh domain. That one was. I have a habit of registering domains and then like months later checking Wayback Machine to see that they're actually aged domains inadvertently. But that one was a fresh domain. Yeah. So basically, I didn't have a site monetized at all for like, I don't know, quite a while until we were well out of the sandbox or just out of the sandbox. And really, it all came down to roundup articles for me. I'll just straight up tell you the first article we did that did really good was best tib bars. You know what a tib bar is, James? Like tibialis training device. Yep.
Do it. Yeah, maybe
So
explain it for the listeners.
yeah, so it's essentially it's just like a little, I guess like a tiny little mini barbell thing that you wedge in between your ankles and your feet. It allows you to train the muscles on your shins. And it's becoming quite a popular sort of training device for the last few years with the whole knees over toes ATG movement, which may not mean anything to anyone, but it's kind of like a getting popular
Kind of like a
in the
cult.
sports performance space. Kind of like a what?
Kind of like a cult.
A cult, yes, very much. The ATG
Yep.
thing is crazy. Yeah, and so I was in just like looking through Ahrefs one day, and I saw this keyword just like tib bar for like 4,800 monthly search volume and like zero competition, like, or zero KD or whatever. And I didn't even know what a tib bar was at the time, to be honest. And I was pretty up to date with what was going on. And at the time, I think it had been around, these things had been around for like 18 months or so. So it was a fairly new and emerging product, I would say. So it's not like we started writing about squat racks. So that's something that's been a big part of my affiliate strategy is, I guess you could say, freshness of products. Like I don't want to be writing about things that, Garage Gym Reviews or Barbend have had for the last, 20 years or whatever. I want to kind of be the first to write on it. And so that's what I did with this. I was like, so tib bar, like back then, way we would think about that keyword is like it's kind of more of an e-commerce keyword, right? Like it's kind of just that head term. If you go on Google and you search for squat rack, you're expecting a bunch of like, category pages, product pages gone, where you can just buy the squat rack. Whereas the affiliate equivalent would be best squat rack, right? However, I had really, really good success doing this using these like head keywords, like just product name or like not necessarily branded product name, but in this case, just tib bar. And you can kind of just look at the SERP and like tell by how much content there was that was kind of like relevant to the keyword, that like whether you're actually going to be able to have a good chance of ranking a roundup article for that head keyword. So like I believe for something that's been around a while, say squat rack, you're probably going to struggle. And I don't know, this might actually work. You might struggle to rank a best X for Y article for that head keyword, like squat rack. Whereas you'll rank it for sure for best squat rack. But there's a certain sort of gap that I discovered in terms of keywords where if something's not been written on a ton, like if there's not a ton of like articles or like product, category pages, if there's just not a lot on a keyword, you'll be able to rank a best X for Y very easily just for the head term. And so like that was my goal with this article. It's like I'm going to try and rank for this 4,800 search volume head term tib bar. And so yeah, I wrote the 7 best tib bars of 2022, and within a couple of weeks, this was our first sort of money article, I guess, and DR0, and barely out of the sandbox. And yeah, within a couple of weeks, I think we were like third or fourth on the SERP for that head term. And within like a month, I think that one article was doing like $1,000 a month or around there in revenue. And that was like, a huge success for me, like, fairly new to the game and everything. And I was like, this is great. I'm just going to start doing a bunch of these. Like, they worked extremely well. And And the great thing about that article as well was that it took forever for anyone to come in and see what I was doing and like compete against me on there. Like it was a good year before I think there was another roundup article for tib bars. And by the time like anyone else had decided to compete for that keyword, I'd gone out and bought all the tib bars, done video reviews on all of them. I'd made the bloody greatest tib bar review of all time. And yeah, it was like Google just wanted to keep us right at the top there. And it worked extremely well, the roundup, the whole roundup approach. And so, yeah, I just went out. And the great thing about fitness is that there is infinite products you can talk about. And there is a great turnover of like freshness as well. So it's like, you know, I'll do roundups on stuff that I don't even know exists, like, you know, a day beforehand. Like if I'm in the space and I don't know it exists, like there's no way these massive publications like, you know, Barbend are going to be able to figure that out quicker than me. And so, you know, you can get like 6 months of, you know, competition free articles or roundups and stuff. And they do really well from what I've experienced anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, when you talk about ranking for like the head or C term, I don't know if you've ever seen it now, but if you search like, for example, barbell, if you search like an Alico barbell, you'll see that there's a lot of those sites now, Garage Gym Reviews, a few other Garage Gym site stuff, they actually have like a product page on their affiliate site.
Yeah.
So
Did
it's like
see
just
GGR,
and then
very sneaky.
and that ranks. Yeah, and it ranks
It
for the
kind
head
of
term. And I'm like,
it
that's
looks
crazy.
like a product page, but it's a fake product page. But yeah, no, that's I do
Yep.
remember there was I think it was Ahrefs did a video on some of the like the smartest like affiliate plays or whatever, and they had the GGR sort of the way they do that. That's it's really smart actually. But yeah, even still, those pages, like it's borderline thin. Like some of them, like if you know, they just did a recent one on the Nordex. There's a brand new Nordic bench that we're thinking about reviewing, and I had a look at the GGR page.
Dude,
and
it's like a million of
it
those.
just looks like a product page, and like they're basically soliciting UGC. Like if you've used this product, you know, leave a review, and it's, you know, some of them when they do review it, they do a great job, but they don't get around to everything, you know. So even those guys don't move all that fast, which is the natural advantage for the smaller players, I guess.
Yeah. So your conversion rate optimization, or your CRO for anyone listening, must be insane on some of those roundup articles. If you're getting 15,000 page views and making that much money a month, there's got to be something you're doing right, even though you might have been hit by an update. So run me through, how are you doing these roundup articles, and what's the secret sauce?
Yeah, you're right. I did go deep into the CRO rabbit hole quite a while ago, and it is, to me, one of the most fascinating parts about this whole game. You know, if you've got site articles that are doing really well, like, you know, if you want to get 30% more profit from them, quite often it's going to be easier to, like, some articles just like max out at whatever the volume is, and you just can't get more eyes on the page. But if you can get more clicks, more referrals per visitor, that does extremely well. And there's just so many sites that are leaving so much money on the table. Like it's pretty ridiculous. So to me, there's like basically two things about a roundup article that you absolutely need to get right. And I'm going to do a newsletter on this on Thursday, I think. So for me, it's like introduction and product comparison table. Like that's the 80-20 of a roundup article. If you can do a great job of those two things, like, you're gravy. So if we start with the introduction, like I think Jamie IF has got a pretty good, I think he calls it the SPEAR framework or whatever for this. And I'll be completely honest, I don't even remember what the acronym stands for, but I think it's like, it can be even simpler than that. Like basically when someone arrives on your article, you just need to like convince them as quickly as possible that you're someone they should listen to, that you know your shit, and that like you're actually capable of giving them the information that they want. So for me, like I just do an article, like an introduction, like I try and keep it as short as possible. I just be like, look, you know, over the last 3 months, I've gone out and personally purchased 10 of the top rated, you know, squat racks, put them through their paces, I am now like the most overqualified human being on this planet to teach you which squat rack is right for your individual needs as an athlete. And just like full stop, like, and then, let's begin. And then I'll just jump into it from there. Like, you can sort of pad it out and add like nice sort of fluffy language if you want, or, you can signpost where you're going to go with the article, but like, no one really cares. Like, everyone kind of knows what a roundup article is. They know what they're going to get. You don't really need to tell them like, we're going to talk about this and then this, and it's going to be a buyer's guide. It's like, no, just like, can I trust you? And then shove a product in my face. Like, that's at least how I like to read roundups. And yeah, maybe that actually isn't the most representative of everyone, but I think most people would appreciate you trying to generally go in that direction with it. So yeah, I do a very, very quick intro. It's very to the point, just like credibility, 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 just like, I'm the man. I know everything there is. Like, my Tib Bar article, like, I'm pretty certain that there is no one else on this planet who has used more Tib Bars than I have, which is a very weird flex, but like, it's true at this point. Like, no one's tested that many Tib Bars. And so like, if you genuinely want someone to help you make a good purchase decision when it comes to Tib Bars, like, I am the guy. Like, it's just like, it's just what it is. And
You
if
need
I
to
can tell
manufacture
people
your own.
that, honestly, like, I was in Sydney like not so long ago, and this guy came up to me and he was showing me how he's like manufacturing this, and he's like, I've seen your articles and stuff, and I'm like, I could literally, I know all the tiny little things about Tib Bars that, the ones that annoy me, or like the padding's slightly not thick enough here, or this one's going to hurt the front of your foot. And this is all like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's a Tib Bar. They're pretty much a commodity now. But if you're searching for advice, then like, I can do it basically. And I think I do a good job of proving that in the intro. But yeah, so that's the first part of it. And then your product comparison table, which is, if you do a really good job of this, like, no one's even going to read the rest of your articles. So like, I think it's something like 80-90% of clicks are coming from the product comparison table. So it's really, really important. I think a lot of people add too many products in there. Like, if I'm doing 8 best Tib Bars, quite often I'll see 8 products in a comparison table, which is unnecessary. Like, like best overall, best value, or best budget option, and then like one other is fine. And of course, we're all using Lasso nowadays. I used to have my own product comparison tables. I did them up in Generate Blocks, and they were real pretty and stuff. And one day, like, either WordPress updated or Generate Blocks updated, and everything was like messed up. It was just like absolutely dog's breakfast on mobile. And I had to go through and update it on every, it would have taken like, I don't even know how I made these in the first place. Like, it was just hours of like moving things around pixel by pixel to get it looking perfect. And I just couldn't figure out how to fix it, to be honest. I was like, okay, let's just jump on Lasso, and at least then I know it's going to be formatted good. And, it's being able to change the links in one central spot is very, very handy. So I use Lasso now for everything. Yeah, those two things, mate. The intro, product comparison table, you do a great job of that. Yeah, the other part of it as well, I mean, there's so much more that, goes into one of these articles. Kevin Meng is someone people need to get around. His SEO web copy 101 or whatever masterclass he does, where he talks about, the right language to use to, help people buy. At the end of the day, an affiliate roundup article is you're trying to sell someone on something, and you need to use the right language if you want to actually have a high conversion rate. That goes a long way. I think I can't really say how much, extra clicks I'm getting because of the language I'm using, but I did do one split test where there's this site called, you'll be very familiar, Powerlifting Technique. They have some very old articles. I think one of the real old ones is called like, it's like best barbells under 500 or whatever it was. And I decided I wanted to see like how well my roundup articles were performing compared to someone else. So I go out and pick like just the most horrific looking like format. Like it's really bad. They're old format like roundup articles. No comparison tables, or like very very poorly done comparison tables. Just the product display boxes were just like non-existent, and like the CTRs weren't optimized or anything. And so I kind of like I copied their exact format that they were using for their articles, and I basically duplicated one of my articles and I changed the format so it was like a mirror reflection of if this was on powerliftingtechnique.com, like this is how it would look. So I had my sort of sweet optimized article over here, and then over here I had the sort of poorly optimized, I would say, version that other sites in the space are using. And I ran a split test to see like sort of the difference in terms of conversions would be, just using Neelio A/B test plugin. And I let it run on, I put it on my highest performing article at the time, because, I wanted to ram some traffic through the split test. And within a day, the test had already gotten to statistical significance, and my article format with the sweet intro and the product comparison table and everything in between was getting 44% more clicks than a poorly formatted version, which is what we're seeing from other sites in the space. And that was just like a little experiment to prove to myself, like this stuff really actually does make a difference. And that if you take your CRO seriously, like 44%, man, that's like, imagine how you can't just go out and get 50% more traffic on certain articles, especially if you already rank one. So if you want to juice more out of your best articles, like that's really the only way to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Shout out to Powerlifting Technique. I talked to the previous owner almost every
Talk
day
to the
now.
new owner.
He's a good
Actually,
friend.
the new owner just bought
Oh, yes.
my other site, and yeah, absolutely great guy. And he's aware that there's some old articles that need improving and stuff. But yeah, no, great site. I'm a big fan. It's not been nice competing against them, to be honest.
No, they're crushing now. And then obviously,
Yeah.
it's funny, yeah, as you mentioned with their format, like you see a lot of the Pillar 4 media company sites, Garage Gym Reviews, Barbie, and Sports Illustrated, they all use that format. They're pretty much a very similar format, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
the number of articles they have and the authority they have, like any review term you search, they'll be like those sites top 3, which is a bit of a
Yeah,
pain
and
in the
it's
ass.
like at this point it seems pretty obvious that like, this is how you should do these articles, right? Like back when I started, and even today, like it's so easy to find examples of affiliate sites that are just getting it so wrong. Like even the real big, like we're talking like DR 85, 90 publications, just right out of the
Mm.
box, it's just everything is wrong. Everything is wrong, and they must be getting like an absurd amount of traffic to it. Like some of these, you know, best cat food articles I was looking at the other day, they're just oh,
Is that the new
absolutely
niche?
horrific. No, God, no. I was just having a poke around to see. I was looking for examples of bad affiliate articles actually, because it's doing some content on it. And yeah, lo and behold, this one it's ranking one. It must be getting 30,000 page views a month, and probably doing 5 figures in revenue. But like what could it be doing? Like it's just it's a very, and this is everywhere on all sorts of different SERPs. People just still seem to treat the CRO as an afterthought, which it really isn't. And the people that need it most are the ones getting that insane traffic that, could really anyone that's like, as long as your article is ranking as high as it could, and it's bringing in, basically it's tapping out the max of what traffic potential it could get. Like the next logical step is to sit down and do some CRO for sure.
Did you see any conversion rate increases going from generate blocks to lasso?
No, not really. And again, like as I said, my site was in a bit of a doghouse at the time. Like our traffic in GSC is like just very flat and almost doesn't barely doesn't even move on a day by day basis. It's kind of weird. But in terms of, yeah, like I wasn't really tracking the like what the actual conversion rate was before. I didn't have that number handy. I guess
Mm.
I can see all that info now with Lasso, and but I've with Lasso out of the box, it takes quite a bit of messing around to get things looking exactly how you want in terms of like CSS and everything. And so I was eventually able to get my Lasso boxes looking very similar to my old ones that I really liked. And I assume like they work exactly the same way now. Like it's not going to be any lower than it was previously, the conversion rate, if anything, possibly higher. I'm not sure what would cause that, but it's more of just like it's just so much easier to manage. Like it's so quick to just go and like paste a link into the dashboard, and then like you've got the short code like that. You can just whack it into an article. Like back how I was doing it before, like it was way more time consuming. So like if you've got any amount of these articles, like I can't really talk them up enough. Like it's just gonna save your life to not have to do that manually anymore.
Yeah, nice. And you posted on Twitter recently about it, and I see it through your articles as well. Is the idea of using GIFs or GIFs? I don't know how people, I call them GIFs, GIFs versus
Definitely.
images. And
Yeah.
do you find that is a big advantage doing that within your articles versus having images or pasting a YouTube video?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of pasting YouTube videos because I try and keep everything sort of on brand in the sense that like I want everything to be done by us where possible. But yeah, so the idea of clips, so for people who don't know, like in particularly visual niches, I think when you're like, especially if you're trying to do an exercise demonstration or really anything like, insert your flavor here. I think having being able to like embed like a 4, 5, 6 second clip onto the page instead of using an image is almost always more helpful to the end user. And it's something that, you know, Google wants us to optimize for being helpful, right? And it's hard to say whether it's probably not going to make a difference in terms of ranking, and if anything, it's probably going to have a negative impact on ranking because it does increase that file size a little bit, so your page speed might not be as crash hot. But there are certain things you can do to optimize your clips to get the file size almost pretty much to parity with a regular image. But yeah, I think I really love doing it on my other site that I sold, another sports related niche. It's like, it's just riddled with clips everywhere, everywhere. It's just like, it kind of brings the page to life, and it makes it more engaging and more sort of interactive in a sense to the reader. Like people just like looking at animations. It's like, it's just a better experience. And so, yeah, I rarely use images at all anymore. I'll just, yeah, go and create like I use MP4s. So GIFs are like, weren't actually originally designed to be used in sort of on the web. Like they're a really heavy file size, and they get big fast, which is not good for page speed. But if you use an MP4 and you just kind of just go on YouTube or wherever and find the clip of the thing that you want to put in, crop it up so it's, I try and do between 2 and 5 seconds. I find is a pretty sweet spot, and you can play around with the speed to get it sort of into that bracket. And a little bit of it's just you just go onto your article and you insert a custom HTML block, and you can just upload that MP4 to your library or whatever media library, and you can just very easily embed it into the page, and it'll function exactly as a GIF does. You can turn the auto play on, the audio off, the auto loop on, and that way it's just like it looks identical to a GIF. And yeah, I think it's just a lot better. If you're worried about file size, you can compress them pretty heavily, and it's going to end up looking fairly pixelated. But I think that's kind of a trade off you have to decide. Like I've seen on a lot of sites actually, like Runner's World and stuff, like, they have very, very crispy looking, like almost like UHD, like gifs in their articles. And I'm pretty sure they're also using MP4s, but they're definitely not compressed, and their file sizes are going to be quite large. And they don't seem too worried about page speed whatsoever. But yeah, I think a normal sort of clip you can get around, I don't know, like 200 to 400 kilobytes or whatever it is. So like, like on the bigger side compared to an image, but what's the trade-off? Like, you don't have to put, clips for every image, forever, but yeah, certain ones where it makes sense, I think is really a good way to add some extra flavor to your articles.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, the nice thing about the GIFs, even though they're too big, is you can still add alt text to them because it loads as an
Yeah,
image,
yeah,
whereas the MP4 is a video. So it's almost like a
yeah.
mini trade-off with SEO. Because obviously, if anyone's, I did an interview with Lee Witch maybe half a year ago or a little longer ago, but he's played around with. I don't know if he actually talked about it on the podcast, or it might have been just after the podcast, but he's played around with doing like full, like massive essays within the alt text because you
Oh,
can just
really?
load it. You can just load it with anything you want and just have like huge things of like partial match keywords, exact match keywords, all within like a whole
Yeah,
story explaining the picture. I haven't gone that
that's
far because it just
yeah.
takes way too much time. But
Yeah,
that's
no,
I guess
I
that's
mean,
maybe a trade off with using that strategy. But you know,
yeah.
there's many
Yeah,
ways
it's
to do
I
it.
mean, it seems like there would be a diminishing point of returns if you're gonna start writing books in alt tags, but, you'd think Google are pretty switched on to sort of keyword stuffing and all that stuff nowadays. But hey, if it's working for him, if the shoe fits,
Yeah, for sure. And then as well, you talked about featured images and about
yeah.
kind of moving away from just putting your image title on the image and then that's it.
Mm.
How are you then approaching, I guess, this to make it more engaging for someone on your site?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a featured image Nazi at the moment, and to be completely honest, it's something that I've done a pretty poor job of myself for like all of my sites in the past. And I think it's just so easy
Same.
for people to, yeah, just go on Canva and grab your H1 and just whack a picture in there and call it a day. But like when you really think about it, like when you're getting traffic from Google, like the literal first thing people are going to see when they click onto your article, like no one even knows what website they're going to. Like they just trust that Google's going to serve what they want, in number one. So that people quite often are just going to go click on the first result and not really even glance at the URL. So people end up on your site, they have no idea where they are, and the literal first thing they're going to see is your featured image quite often, that or your H1, or kind of going to see them all at the same time, right? And so to me, I think it's like a golden opportunity to convince the reader that like you should actually spend the next 5 minutes like reading this. And like maybe even the best featured image isn't going to, get them to really get the magnifying glass out and pour through it with a fine tooth comb. But I think there's a good chance you can get them to really sort of engage quite a bit more. And, instead of like skimming through the article, like actually kind of get them reading the words a bit more. I think this is extra important for affiliate roundup articles in particular. Again, like as soon as they get to your article, like the first thing someone's scanning for is like, why should I trust you? Do you know what you're talking about? Have you done the thing? Right. And so if you can show them in the featured image before they've even started reading that they're in the right place and that you're someone they should trust, like they're going to be way more likely to, as soon as you throw a product in their face, like they're just going to click buy because they already trust you so much. So for me, for featured images, I think of like three things that you can do that go a very long way for sort of getting the most out of it, really. The first thing is like builds intrigue, I call it. So you want to like kind of tell a story that there is something so compelling in the text below that you really, really, really want to read this article. And it's easier said than done. But, if you just see the title tag in Canva with a stock image, there is nothing intriguing about it at all, like ever. It just doesn't really draw you to the page at all. It's kind of like, it's just wasting space, more or less. But the most important one is to demonstrate credibility and authority in your featured image. So like for the roundup articles, for the affiliate stuff, if you can like put a picture of yourself in there, like doing the thing or like holding the products or like, you know, using it or whatever it is, that is going to go a lot further than like the way I stood it in the past was just like, I'd take a photo of the product and then just like, crop the background out and then just stick it in there next to the text. That's fine. Like, but it doesn't, like, anyone can do that without buying the product. So if you can at least say with your featured image, look, I've bought the thing and done the thing and used the product, I have firsthand experience, then like you almost don't even need to say that in the text, like in the introduction. So I think, and the other thing as well is like sort of injecting a bit of personality into the featured image. Like if you can use your face, just put yourself in the featured image, like again, that's going to show the reader that like this was written by a real human being who's had a real experience with the thing, and not just some AI, or it wasn't written by a 5-year-old girl. Like when they figure that out at the end of the article, like they also want, like, again, you have to remember they don't know anything about you or your site. Like, that's just the nature of like organic search. When we get in traffic from Google, is like there is no branding touch point at all. Like they have no idea what this business is. And so, even if you can just somehow like, tell them like, this is the site, this is what we do, this is who we are, like, kind of just introduce them to you as a person and like what your brand stands for a bit more than just like, title tag and stock image, and, it's just not adding anything into it, And so, yeah, I think a really, really good featured image goes a really long way, and it's not something you can measure, and people don't really like that. Like you could probably, I don't know, probably split test some bounce rate stuff or dwell time. I'm almost positive you'd have pretty big results from like a really solid featured image, just from like article dwell time and bounce rate alone. And the fact of the matter is, like, if you are trying to optimize for commissions or even for RPMs on informational articles, like it's going to go a really, really long way. And like, you don't have to spend that much longer doing up amazing featured images. Like it still only takes 5 minutes in Canva. You just have to be a little bit more thoughtful about what elements you're putting on the featured image.
You just got my head turning now. I just realized I can actually do some really good ones for a lot of different articles I have. But would you go as far as even doing, say, like YouTube style thumbnails for your featured images?
Yes,
Something, because
yes,
obviously all
yes.
YouTubers are looking to. It's all about thumbnail, title, click through rate. Do the same thing
Right.
on your
So
blog. I'm just thinking, oh, I can do that.
Right. So, with YouTube, the only real, like, these guys are the absolute, grandmasters of CTR, right? They have to, on YouTube. It's more important because they haven't actually earned the click yet. Their featured image or their thumbnail has to. They're doing that to get you to click, right?
Mm.
On when you're with blogging, you've already got the click. They're already on your article, and so you kind of have a slightly different job to do with the featured image. It's like, now that you're here, here's why you should stay, and like here's why, like they're already on the page, but like let's actually get them really emotionally invested in the forthcoming article. But we can learn so much from YouTube thumbnail design. Like I used an example when I was talking about this in my newsletter of Coop from Garage Gym Reviews, and he's got this, this barbell buyer's guide. It's kind of just like a video version of what the best X for Y,
Mhm.
roundup article would be. And it's just him sort of like sitting there, kind of like going like this, and he's got like 900 barbells behind him, and it's like, it's just such a strong featured image, because it's like, not only has he used the product, but he's used, it's kind of absurd for any
Mm.
one man to have that many barbells. And it it really kind of creates intrigue by, like, just his facial expression. It's like, people want to know, did you figure out which one was the best? And yeah, it's like, there's like the text on that thumbnail is just like barbell buyer's guide. Like you don't even need text for that. Like the image says so much, by itself that it's like, yeah, I use that example because I think that would have been like, he's got a written article version of the same thing and it's got a different thumbnail or featured image and it's nowhere near as good. So I think you should just use that one. But yeah, I think definitely like you go on to Mr. Beast's YouTube channel and like look at all the thumbnails and like just go and get some inspo, because like you don't need to go and pay $50 a pop for a professionally designed thumbnail. Like you just need to like, you don't need to even upgrade your sweet canvas skills to be able to do it. Like you just need to, instead of using a stock image, like just take a photo of yourself with the thing and just put that on instead. And it just goes a whole lot further than you know.
Well, I can even imagine, even if you don't have a featured image on your article, if you're on Google Discover or that article's on your homepage and someone's scrolling through, if you have something enticing enough, you should improve your click-through rate through Google Discover, which gives, if you're running ads, gives you like double the RPMs. And then for on your homepage, you might have someone looking for something, but they come across that image and they're intrigued. They might go there after something or before. So that's probably
exactly
a couple more positive things to why you should do something like that.
Yeah, if you're qualified for Google Discover and you're not optimizing, I think you need like 1200 pixels wide, and there's a few other little things that you need to like actually.
I'm on Google Discover with 900 pixel wide.
Oh, you are? Well, there you go.
In fact,
so like,
I'm on Google Discover and I do none of the guidelines. And everything I post on one of my sites goes to Google Discover, and I satisfy no guidelines. So I don't understand.
There you go. Like,
exactly, but
that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I was having a conniption the other day trying to read the requirements. I'm like, how do I do this tiny little thing, like 7 bullet points down the list to like, fulfill their requirements? And it's nice to know that it doesn't matter.
I have 3 sites on Discover, and none of them have the requirements. So I don't know how quite it works, but I don't know. Maybe it increases your chances.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few bites, over the last couple of years on there, and get some traffic, but it's like, I think if you're really trying to do a big Google Discover play, it might be worth. I've seen a few of your interviews with people that are pulling some big traffic from Google Discover, and I think there's definitely something it's a bit of a balancing act again with the sort of clickbaity H1s and stuff. Like you kind of got to play the game a bit, but like not, like my Google Discover now is like absolutely like just AIDS, man. It's like whales move $400 trillion worth of Bitcoin, XRP, Ripple, and all this BS. And it's like, they're all like, can see what they're trying to do, and it's like
so that's why you're selling to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, the Google Discover articles, mate, they've got me.
Oh, no, fair enough. No, we've covered heaps in this podcast. We could keep chatting, but we'll keep it to the hour here for the pod. But where can people find you? Obviously, you're the niche whisperer. That's not your handle on Twitter, but you're the niche whisperer on Twitter. Do you want to plug everything?
Yeah, I just put that on the Twitter handle because I feel like that's again going to increase the CTR on the profile visit a little bit if people think I'm somehow a creator related to niche websites. So yeah, it's just at Harvey Meale on Twitter. I have the niche site newsletter.com as well if you're interested in. I'm delivering sort of all of these tactics we're talking about here every week on there. Just kicked off on YouTube yesterday, posted the channel intro there. So again, just Harvey Meale. Yeah, gonna be doing quite a bit of content, in the coming months and stuff. So I'm pretty excited to get into the game and hopefully help a few people out, teach people about some of the stuff that I've learned that works really well. So even just harveymeale.com, wherever, it's fine.
Nice, perfect. So we'll throw those in the description as well, so you guys can go check them out after listening to the pod. But thanks for coming on, Harvey. I appreciate it.
No worries, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again.